Well, the dust has settled after the federal election. I'm not sure if anyone won so much as a lot of people lost, although at the end of the day, Justin Trudeau remains the Prime Minister. Doug Ford was not on any ballot, but boy, he sure was a punching bag of Trudeau, and Andrew Scheer himself kept his distance. I'm not sure if that was wise. Doug Ford, for all his flaws and problems, I think is more popular in Ontario, at least in the 905 area code, than Andrew Scheer was. So much going on both in federal and provincial politics, and of course, not everything is just partisan elections. There's other battles ranging from school battles, culture battles. Where is this country going? And one of our favorite people to talk to about all these matters is our friend Tanya Granic Allen, who stopped in the studio today. Great to see you again.
Nice to see you, Ezra. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's a pleasure. Tell us what you've been up to these days. I know you were really a student activist, a parent activist for a while. What are your projects now?
Well, I still am going to be definitely very much a parental rights and children's rights advocate. And I've now left as president of Parents as First Educators, which was the parental rights outfit I was president of, passed the baton back to the previous president. And now I'm just kind of recalibrating, as a former leadership contestant provincially here, there's a lot of responsibility that comes even if you win or lose. So I'm still in touch with a lot of the grassroots conservatives, small C conservatives and big C conservatives across the country, giving my 2 cents and kind of looping them into some issues that I think they need to be apprised of.
You did a great job when you ran for the leadership of the Ontario PC Party. I think people originally said, you got no chance. But I think you articulated a very strong conservative point of view. And I think Doug Ford himself said, whoa, I got to grab some of that energy. And in some ways, I think he sort of tracked, or what do they call it in bicycling, when you just, get right, you draft behind you, like he got right in behind you on those key issues. I think you had a big impact provincially. What do you think, we talked a bit about Justin Trudeau for a second there. What do you think of Doug Ford and his Ontario PCs? How are they doing if you have to give them a grade?
I'm a strong fiscal conservative. I'm strong on a lot of social issues as well. I think presently, I would give them a failing grade. And why is because they haven't kept any of their promises. Okay, one, I think just the other day, Doug Ford announced that he will actually continue the court challenge to the Liberal Trudeau government on carbon tax. Great, because, I was really strong on that issue. I outlined exactly how we need to beat Trudeau on this issue. Yeah, that great line about tearing down the wind turbines with your
For
the Green Energy Act. But, hearing that our hydro rates are now going to increase, hearing that in the middle of that federal election campaign that they settled out with the teacher support workers.
Basically gave everything they
Well, that's it. They flip-flopped massively on the sex ed. There's so many issues. And, conservatives elect conservative governments, and people elect conservative governments because they know it was a time for restraint. After that disastrous McGuinty win, 13 years, they knew it was time that we needed to really rein in our pocketbooks. And, I campaigned and I won my seat won the nomination in the 905. So I'm very much in touch with the 905 voters. I have a big multi-ethnic following, a very religiously diverse following. And I know for a lot of those new Canadians, a big issue then was the sex ed. And now that Ford has now flip-flopped and has repealed nothing, it's been a big problem.
Yeah. Well, what do? I feel the same way about Andrew Scheer. I think he's conservative in name only, but my reflex is, well, if you can't beat someone with no one, Jason Kenney's tied up in Alberta as a premier. I don't see Maxime Bernier re-entering the party after he split away from it. I don't think Peter MacKay is a starter. So, in a way, the Conservatives right now, at least, are stuck with Scheer. Doug Ford, he is the premier. And is it possible to improve how he's doing? I don't know what the solution is federally. Do you have any views federally or provincially?
Well, I think conservatives need to start speaking and acting like conservatives. So, there was a lot of talk during the federal campaign that, Scheer was, too strong on social conservative issues or this or that. I don't care what people say. I want to see what they're going to do. You say you're pro-life, fine. What are you going to do about it? I remember Stephen Harper, who was definitely not a pro-life or social conservative man. What did he do? He made sure that they did not fund abortions overseas. He kept true to that promise. Andrew Scheer, who self-describes as pro-life, I don't know what he really personally believes, but he could not keep to that.
Focus group it before he answers any
Well,
question.
He did not even commit to what Stephen Harper approved of, which was no funding abortion overseas. So that was a bit of a scandal. But in terms of how Doug Ford would have, impacted the election, again, we're dealing with milquetoast conservatives here. In the 905, I don't think that it would have necessarily harmed Andrew Scheer if Doug Ford came out, but I don't think it would have bettered Andrew Scheer. I actually canvassed with several conservative and a few PPC, but several conservative candidates. And I went door to door in the 905, and I went door to door in other rural parts of the province. And, you know, Doug Ford's name did come up. The polls were right. He's a very unpopular guy. Again, he got in because of the win effect. He wasn't even really that popular then, but he got in because of the win effect, and people kind of jumped on that train. But, you know, in the 905, you're dealing with a lot of a variety of religious groups, a lot of New Canadian Sikhs, Muslims, Hindus, Christians. And when you're not talking about issues that matter to them, and let's face it, a lot of these religious groups, social issues do matter, like legalization of marijuana, like the sex ed, or like gender identity theory. My gosh, Doug Ford promised to get rid of gender identity theory in schools. He didn't do that. I don't even think Andrew Scheer mentioned it once in the election.
And that's such a slam dunk. That's the kind of thing, like we see that Jonathan Yaniv, who calls himself Jessica Yaniv, that crazy case in the West Coast. You see these sports, you know, these guys who failed in the male track just call themselves women and then dominate in like just recently.
Yeah, it's an affront to women's rights.
Other than the media and some legal activists, that's got to be like 95% the other side. Any politician who would pick that up surely would do well. Well,
precisely. Why did they not feature C16 as an issue? My gosh, Jordan Peterson has such a huge following because of the C16.
You're so on that? Yeah, the compelled speech to say, you know, to call a man his or hers or she or he, like the fake pronouns business, is crazy.
Like, do I think the 905 would have been supportive if they said, hey, we don't want gender identity in our institutions and in our schools? Do I think that would have made Andrew Scheer more popular? Absolutely. Yeah. The 905 cares about issues like that.
Well, you know what? First of all, it would have given him some character because he was just a blank slate. Second of all, it would have provoked a controversy, but a controversy that he would win. I mean, it reminds me, one of the examples I think about is Omar Khadr. The entire official media class, political class, legal class, absolutely in love with him. Severely normal Canadians say, whoa, he's a terrorist. Are you crazy? Same thing on the gender identity. The media political fancy class would be appalled if Andrew Scheer or Doug Ford came out against the trans extremism. But normal people would say, finally, right on. That is the Peterson effect.
The media, they don't have a pulse on the people. Okay, let's see. A lot of the media has shifted so far left, and they operate within a vacuum. So if you go door to door and speak to the average Canadian, and ask them like a basic questions like, how many sexes or genders do you think they are? Pretty sure that 99% will say 2, much to the chagrin of those who support Bill C-16.
Yeah. Well, listen, we love your fighting spirit. I loved watching your political campaign. It was interesting watching you head that parents group, family rights, students' rights, parents as first educators. We're curious to see what you do next. You're always welcome here at The Rebel to come in as a pundit. Even if you want to pick up a microphone and go report on something, the door is always open here. We're fans of what you do, and we hope you keep shaking things up.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's great to see you again. Well, there you have it. Tanya Granic Allen joining us for a bit of a post-mortem. And unfortunately, it is a mortem. I think the political body of the Conservatives is nearly dead, at least. That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show, which is a show I do every day. I do a monologue, interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at premium.rebelnews.com.